Discover the incredible twist. She scratched the car of a Mafia boss and found unexpected love. Sarah had been working non-stop, rising with the sun to make coffee in her chipped mug, worn from years of hard mornings. The small diner where she poured coffee and served eggs felt like a prison in some stretches of time. Each shift passed with the routine of greasy plates and polite conversation, the click-clack of her heels against the tile, constant background noise in her mind. But the ache of responsibility was always sharper than any coffee could dull. Emily talked of college, ambitions for a life beyond this small Midwestern town, and Sarah struggled to fuel those dreams on a waitress's salary. Her heart ached with the pressure of it all. It was as if the weight of unfulfilled dreams threatened to crush her, taunting her every day. That evening, a rush of adrenaline wrapped around her body as she hurried to the school to pick up Emily. The parking lot was a maze of minivans and sedans, sprawling under the fluorescent lights. But, in her haste, she miscalculated, cursing her own distracted mind. The sickening sound of metal scraping against metal sent her heart racing. A sleek black sports car, imposing, shiny, held the dent of her mistake. Panic clawed at her throat. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice barely a sound. Tony, the Tiger, Russo. That name danced through her mind like a ghost. She knew all too well the whispers and warnings that accompanied it, intoxicating and terrifying, a local legend cloaked in danger. The weight of her conscience bore down heavily. What if he exploded with rage? What if her daughter's future crumbled because of her reckless mistake? No, she couldn't run. A moral dilemma edged in sharply. She had to confront him. Swallowing her fear, she wrote a note for Emily, explaining she would be late, just until she sorted things out. After what felt like an eternity, she stood before the restaurant's entrance. The polished glass stood like a wall separating her from the looming dread inside. The scent of gourmet food wafted through, an aroma so different from the greasy fries in the diner. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears as she pushed through, scanning the dark room until she spotted him, Tony, with an air of authority, surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses. As he turned, those piercing eyes met hers, and the grin fell from his face. "Sarah," he acknowledged, the name hanging heavily between them. "What's this about a scratch?" "What's fair is fair," she managed to say, her voice shaking. Before she could finish, he surprised her. "Why don't we talk over dinner?" As they shared a meal in that upscale restaurant, tension crackled. Sarah felt the gravity of her life and his drawing them together and pushing them apart. She could see beneath his hardened exterior, a flicker of vulnerability darting through those dark eyes. But every time she gazed into them, a warning screamed within her. Danger lurked in shadows, and this tangled connection could easily lead to her undoing. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation deepened, so did her internal conflict. With each shared laugh, she felt her resolve waning against the tide of attraction, drawn into the whirlpool of his world. Yet the specter of Emily's dreams loomed. Was she willing to risk everything for this connection? Just as she thought she could breathe, a shadow flickered in his gaze. His past reared its head. A man from the underworld, lurking just outside, bringing chaos along with unresolved ties. The stakes rose as Tony, trembling on the precipice of change, whispered promises of a different life. But could he really escape? With each beat of her heart, Sarah lost herself deeper, the lines between love and danger blurring, leaving her stranded in a storm of uncertainty. As the tension tightened, she stood on the threshold of her next decision, fear and desire waging war in her chest, prepping the stage for the darkest chapter ahead. The palpable tension of the restaurant wrapped around Sarah like an unwelcome cloak, tight and constricting. She could feel her heart pounding as she analyzed Tony's every move, every flick of his eyes. The lingering draw between them, a potent mix of attraction and risk, began to warp her sense of reality. "I'm not one to hold grudges," Tony finally said, slicing through the heavy silence between them. There was a strange gentleness in his voice, but Sarah couldn't ignore the veiled threat. It was both a promise and a reminder of the dangerous edge her life was teetering on. Just fix the dent. I'll pay for it. I'll make it right. The words spilled out of her, laced with desperation. His lips curved into a smile that was both charming and dangerous, a fleeting hint of the man behind the Mafia legend. You're not getting off that easy, Sarah. How about you let me give you a chance to change your life? Let us stop dancing around fear. Her pulse quickened as a spark ignited within her, a mix of dread and exhilaration. Was this what she had been searching for? Opportunity, an escape from the diner and the mundane? Yet, the reminder of Emily loomed, heavy in her mind. What was she willing to sacrifice for her own desires? She had been the steady rock, the brave protector, yet here she was, teetering on the edge of temptation, drawn into a world that was never meant for her. Change? Her voice cracked, wavering with the intensity of her own internal questions. You're talking about an entire life. What do you mean? I have contacts, connections that could help you achieve so much more than serving coffee, he said, motioning to the restaurant filled with well-dressed patrons. But it comes with a price. You would have to step out of your comfort zone. A hesitant thrill coursed through her. Step out? Perhaps it was time to redefine who she was. She had stifled her aspirations for years. Emily was counting on her to break free from the confines of small-town life. What do you have in mind? But she felt the weight of uncertainty flood back in as Tony leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You would need to be on my side, understand the game. It sounded seductive, a pathway toward ambition, but she couldn't shake the underlying dread. Could she truly step into a world filled with shadows and secrets? I can't risk Emily's future, she found herself saying, even though a part of her craved the adventure he offered. Epiphany struck, an awareness of her own hesitation. This was more than a job, it was a life-altering decision. The thought of her daughter's future intertwined with the unknown tangled her stomach in knots. I'll protect you both, he promised, his face earnest. What if I could change everything for Emily too? Just then, the door of the restaurant swung open, and a gust of wind swept inside, carrying an ominous chill. Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere as she glanced back at Tony, whose expression had hardened, shadows creeping back into his eyes. There was a moment of silence, an unspoken tension as a new figure entered, a man with an air of predatory focus, eyeing them with a mix of interest and contempt. The sharp reality of her choices punctured the moment like a sharp knife. Perhaps the illusion of change had been just that, a fleeting notion. Was she truly ready to take on a world that was reading her every vulnerable thought? The turmoil of her emotions swirled inside her like a tempest. Perhaps you need some time to think this through, Tony said gently, but the flicker of urgency was evident in his gaze. Sarah wrung her hands, caught in a whirlwind of desire and fear. Now, with a decision looming, the world she had known trembled beneath her feet, threatening to fracture at the slightest shift. Here, nestled within the pulse of confusion and drawing darkness, was Sarah's moment of truth. Could she embrace this unexpected love, or would she retreat to the safety of her past? As the mystery of the man before her deepened, she sensed that her fate was tied not just to him, but to the unsettling push and pull of her own heart. The weight of the choice pressed fiercely against her resolve. Would she take the plunge, or would she turn back? Just then, the man at the door took a step forward, and Sarah braced herself for what came next. The storm was brewing, and the moment of decision was drawing near. As the man approached, an undercurrent of danger rippled through the restaurant. Sarah's instincts kicked in, she could almost hear the warnings echoing in her mind. Yet, her gaze remained locked on Tony, whose demeanor shifted with the arrival of this new figure. He leaned back slightly, his posture tense, and for a brief moment, the familiarity of their earlier conversation faded into the background. Who is he? Sarah murmured, though she already feared the answer. Tony's eyes narrowed. Just a flunky, but he doesn't like me much, he replied, his tone an unsettling blend of irritation and caution. The man's presence was so potent that pressure settled in her chest, and she grappled with a horrifying thought. Was she risking her life by entertaining Tony's offer? Her heart raced as uncertainty clawed at her resolve. If anything went wrong, the ramifications would extend far beyond herself. She thought of Emily, her daughter's laughter, her dreams, and the fragile fabric of their life together. What if this decision placed Emily in the line of fire? But then, the thrill of the unknown beckoned. Sarah had spent years stifling the flickering flame of her potential, suffocated by routines as monotonous as the diner's coffee refills. What if stepping into this realm offered more than just survival? Before she could unravel her thoughts, the flunky reached their table, his gaze piercing. "Tony," he greeted coolly, the familiarity suggesting a long history of animosity. He turned slightly, his gaze drifting to Sarah. "And who's this? A new toy?" The casual malice in his words stoked Sarah's resolve, forcing her deeper into a personal chasm of vivid realization that she was on the cusp of a definitive choice, a choice she'd never intended to face. "Mind your own business, Leo," Tony snapped, but a tremor in his voice betrayed he was weighing his options, calculating the potential fallout. The space between them crackled with an unsaid tension, both men locked in a power struggle, making a quick decision. Sarah cleared her throat, channeling an authority she'd rarely tapped into before. "I'm not a toy, and you should learn to respect that." The words left her lips like a defiant arrow, surprising even herself. There was an infusion of strength she hadn't anticipated. Was this the awakening she needed? Tony's mouth quirked in a smirk, and she caught a glimmer of approval in his eyes, igniting a deep-seated need to prove her worth. "Bold," Leo said, raising an eyebrow, but his smirk twisted into a scowl. "Just remember, darling, power lies with those who know how to play the game." Sarah felt her pulse quicken at his veiled threat, but the electric spark of defiance thrummed resolutely within her. This was no longer just about Tony or the allure of a different life. This was about reclaiming her agency and fighting for everything she cared for. "Maybe I'll be the one to teach you the rules, Leo." A flicker of shock crossed Tony's face, quickly masked with admiration. In that moment, Sarah recognized a pivotal turning point in her development, a prospect of not merely surviving but mastering her circumstances. "I've had enough of hiding in the shadows," she declared, fixing her gaze on Tony. "You said you could help me change my life. I want to back down now." The atmosphere thickened with unwritten possibilities and unspoken challenges. The way forward loomed uncertain but thrilling. Could she truly plunge into this unknown, harness the desire burning inside her, and simultaneously ensure Emily's safety? As Leo stepped back, momentarily cowed by her defiance, Tony leaned forward, his expression a mix of intrigue and uncertainty. "You're about to enter a dangerous game, Sarah. Do you really know what you're asking for?" But in that moment of vulnerability, a voice inside her whispered, "Maybe this is exactly the fight you've been waiting for." With her heart pounding, Sarah stared at Tony, her determination settling into resolve. "Show me the game." And as the weight of that decision settled into her bones, she could feel the storm closing in, ready to unleash its fury. Would she be ready to face the reality of her choices when the stakes raised higher than she had ever imagined? The air around Sarah felt heavy, thick with unspoken stakes as the gravity of her decision settled in. She couldn't help but wonder what future interactions and challenges awaited her within this underworld Tony had hinted at. The thrill and fear entwined like a tightly wound coil, each tension-filled moment pushed her further from her mundane life. Tony's smirk had shifted in meaning, from admiration to cautious encouragement. The vulnerability she'd just shown opened a door inside her that had been locked for far too long. What if she was capable of more than she believed? Every day in the diner, she'd contended with the banality of routine, the unrewarding work that left little room for aspiration. This confrontation, however, sparked something primal, a mix of adrenaline and purpose that she had thought long extinguished, yet, with the exhilaration came a wave of trepidation. A dangerous game, as Tony had said, and she needed to understand the rules. How could she navigate this world without losing herself or endangering Emily? The thought of her daughter softened the resolve but also sharpened it. She had no room for failure. As Leo stepped away, she felt the blood return to her fingertips, the flames of her defiance cooling into steely determination. "I want to know everything," Sarah said firmly, locking eyes with Tony. There was an urgency in her voice, a need to grasp the pieces of her life she had kept at bay. Tony leaned back, arms crossed, appraising her with a gaze that felt both like a challenge and acceptance. Very well. But it won't be easy, and the people you'll meet will test your resolve. You're willing to do whatever it takes? Her heart thundered as she considered his words. It wasn't just about her, it was about Emily's future, about closing the gap between the dreams she had cast aside for so long and the life she could teach her daughter to live. There was much she still didn't know, but it was time to shed her complacency and dive into the chaos. Yes, I'm ready. The phrase tasted foreign yet liberating on her tongue. Tony smiled, genuinely this time. Great. Let us begin with the basics. He motioned her closer, talking in lower tones as if cocooning her in a world where just they existed. He outlined the territories, the factions, and the delicate web of power that dictated everything. Each word was a brushstroke painting her new reality, revealing a landscape that seemed vibrant and full of ambition. As the night unfolded, Sarah absorbed every detail, every instinctual warning that flickered through her mind. She was stepping into the unknown, leveraging her fears as a catalyst for change. The longer she stayed in the game, the more she learned about the edges of her ambition, the greater her desire to rise above the pedestrian existence that stifled her. When the discussion shifted toward the opposition, Sarah felt a knot of apprehension twist in her gut. Leo and his kind would not take her defiance lightly. Each piece of information was a brick laid in the foundation of a path she was determined to forge. The warning curled around her instincts like smoke, leading her deeper into uncharted territory. You have skills I think you don't even realize yet, Tony said, his expression earnest. But it's time you discover what you're really capable of. A flicker of doubt danced through her, yet the embers of her courage sparked against it. What did he see in her? He was no stranger to this world, it was the uncertainty that surprised him, not her capability. And there it was, the thrill of stepping into a role she had previously shunned. With resolve swelling within her, she inched closer to the world she had previously skirted. Could she truly unravel how to play this game while keeping her own rules intact? Heading into the depths of conflict, how would she navigate her own morality in the face of challenges ahead? As the night wore on, Sarah felt the stakes intensifying with every revelation, her heart racing at the thought of the upcoming confrontations she might have to face, from Leo to the shadowy figures Tony hinted at. Would she still see herself in the reflection when the dust settled, or would the game consume her whole? In that moment of determination, fingertips brushing the edge of her own potential, she thought, what had been buried within her could rise, but at what cost? The once solid framework of her life was crumbling, and from the ashes, a new, untested version of herself was waiting to emerge. The game was just beginning, and with a blend of anticipation and dread, she silently vowed to embrace whatever it took to master her fate. Unbeknownst to her, the very next encounter would shake her newfound tenacity to its core. Would she be ready to protect herself from the rising storms swirling around her? The next morning, Sarah woke to the familiar cacophony of her cramped apartment. The sound of trains rumbling past and the distant chatter of neighbors punctured the fragile remnants of her dreams. She glanced at the clock, panic rising as she realized she had overslept. Emily would be waiting, finding it difficult to shake off the comfort of childhood innocence and step into the harsh light of reality alone. This routine, while comforting in its familiarity, no longer felt adequate. The weight of her choices pressed down as she hurried to prepare breakfast. As they sat together at the small, wobbly table, Emily chattered away, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling in her mother's mind. Can we go to the park today, Mom? I want to see the ducks. Sarah forced a smile, questions swirling unceasingly. How could she focus on the little joys when she stood at the precipice of an unknown world? The moment they stepped outside, the air brushed against Sarah, sharp and invigorating. She took Emily's hand and watched the wonder in her daughter's eyes as they passed the local stores, the bakery's sweet scent inviting yet bittersweet. She felt a pang of guilt. Every delightful moment with Emily became a potent reminder of what was at stake. Once they reached the park, Sarah found a bench and sat, watching as her daughter ran toward the swings. Each kick forward and backward demonstrated pure, unfiltered joy. A sense of longing gripped Sarah, tugging at the fibers of her very being. She was on the cusp of reclaiming her life, yet Could she allow Emily to witness this transformation? Would the shadows of her decisions darken the light in her child's world? The doubt gnawed at her as she pulled her phone from her pocket, glancing at the time. With a deep breath, she meticulously crafted a text to Tony, her fingers hesitating just above the screen. Ready when you are. Let us get started. The two sentences held the promise of her future but also the weight of every possibility, both liberating and threatening. Her heart raced as she pressed send. Moments later, an unexpected reply pinged through. Meet me at the cafe on 4th at noon. Bring your courage. The hour dragged on in the park as Emily reveled in her freedom, running, laughing, and playing without a care in the world. But for Sarah, each tick of the clock was another reminder of the ultra-ordinary path she decommitted to. She felt starkly aware of her dual existence, the mother determined to shield her daughter from danger while simultaneously embracing an underworld beckoning her with seductive promises of agency and power. Arriving at the cafe, Sarah's heart thumped in her chest. Pushing through the door, the rich aroma of coffee mingled with the chaotic sounds of chatter and laughter, amplifying her anxiety. She spotted Tony in a corner booth, his presence commanding even from a distance. His demeanor, both magnetic and intimidating, drew her in, igniting the quiet flame of ambition she had silently nurtured. Right on time, he remarked, effortfully enveloping her in a warm smile. But the subtle appraisal in his gaze felt like an unspoken challenge. Let us cut to the chase, she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I'm ready to start learning. Tony leaned in, the atmosphere shifting as the veil of casual banter disappeared. Good. It's not just about learning the rules, but also understanding your opponents. You'll face loyalty tests and temptation from every side. It won't be simple, and it won't always be pretty. She felt the burn of his words, a stark reminder of the line she was about to tread. I understand, she lied, recognizing the growing dissonance within her as she battled between her instinct to protect and her desire to conquer. In the fluid dynamics of their conversation, he detailed the various players in this shadowy game, their motivations intertwining with unsightly desires and dangerous allegiances. Each name brought forth a rush of fear. Leo would be waiting, lurking in the corners of anticipation, and Sarah felt like a marionette. Caught in the unsavory hands of greed, just as the conversation thickened, the cafe door swung open, and an unsettling chill coursed through her. A man in a tailored suit entered, casting a long shadow towards their booth. Tony's expression shifted subtly, and he turned to watch the newcomer approach. Without warning, Sarah was thrust into a reality she had only glimpsed, where the safety she sought was merely an illusion. The man drew nearer, his eyes narrowed directly at her, carrying with him the promise of confrontation and revelation intertwined. Do you know what you've just stepped into? He spoke, his voice a low rumble that sent ripples of dread washing over her. She felt her heart drop, the walls she had barely begun to fortify now trembling like sand castles before an encroaching tide. Faced with the reality of her choices, questions stormed her mind. Would she stand her ground or retreat from the very fire she yearned to embrace? With her gaze locked on the man before her, yet acutely aware of Tony's silent expectations, Sarah knew this moment would define her. She sought strength in the uncertainty, ready to wield the courage she had whispered to herself moments before. What was she willing to sacrifice for the life she wanted? The turning point had arrived, plunging her deeper into a world where hundreds of decisions lay hidden, and every fragment of her would be put to the ultimate test. Would she unravel her true potential or succumb to fear's grip? The man in the tailored suit leaned in, his gaze piercing. I asked if you understand the consequences of your choices. You're stepping into a world where ignorance is as dangerous as betrayal. Are you ready for that? The weight of his question pressed on Sarah like an anchor, drawing her deeper into a sea of uncertainty. Ready is relative, she replied, the words escaping with more confidence than she felt. Yet, as she met his challenging stare, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. She had come too far, left too much behind, to shrink back now. Smart girl, he grinned, the hint of menace creeping into his smile. I'm Leo. Let us make one thing clear, trust is earned, not given. You think you can dance with shadows without consequences? You'll quickly learn otherwise. Sarah felt a shiver run through her as Leo's words echoed in the depths of her mind. Every instinct told her to retreat, to shield Emily from the storm brewing in this moment. But the other part of her craved the challenge, a chance to carve out her own path. I understand there are risks, she said, voice steady, but I have to take them. For my daughter. Leo's eyes sparkled with amusement. For your daughter? That's rich. It sounds noble, but in this line of work, motives matter. He paused, allowing the weight of his statement to settle. You want knowledge? Earning it comes with sacrifices, and sometimes, those sacrifices will stain your conscience. In that instant, the cafe's buzz faded, replaced by a tightness in her chest. The avoidance of discomfort had been her life's default setting, but now she was standing on the edge of something monumental. Proving herself would demand every ounce of courage she had rediscovered. What do you want from me? The question slipped out before she could catch it, but it drew a grin from Leo that illuminated his predatory instincts. I want to see if you can handle the intricacies of this game. Tony believes you have potential, and perhaps I should, too. Show me what you're made of. With that, he gestured to Tony, who had remained muted throughout the exchange, watching her with narrowed eyes. It was an unholy alliance, she felt it a duel masked as cooperation. She wasn't ready for the stakes being raised, the uncharted territory beckoning with insidious charm and peril. Can I trust you? She asked, the desperation creeping back into her voice as she felt Tony's weight against her, anchoring her uncertainty. Trust is a luxury, Leo replied with a tilt of his head. You can't afford luxuries here, darling. You'll need to trust yourself first. Everything else will follow. As the weight of his stare bore down on her, Sarah grappled internally with her need to rise above her self-doubt. These slices of intimidation were nothing compared to the trepidation that awaited her at home, the fear of facing Emily and another day fraught with mediocrity. No more retreating into shadows. Confrontation awaited, and surely, it wouldn't just be Leo at the end of this journey. There were allies, adversaries, and pieces of her past that the universe would shove into her path. She had to meet this moment. She could not pretend it did not exist. Leo gestured towards the door. You need to learn quickly. Meet me tomorrow at the docks. I'll give you your first challenge. Challenge? Her voice dripped with skepticism, yet a fire flickered anew in her core. Trust me, he replied. This will be a test of your resolve. And remember, you have a daughter waiting for you. Use that as your compass. As she stepped out of the cafe, the urgency of her heartbeat synchronized with the distant rumble of the trains. Possibilities surged and collided within her. The fear of losing everything contrasted with the intoxicating vision of what she could become. Was she ready to plunge deeper into this murky future, risking the delicate equilibrium surrounding her daughter and herself? The crisp air stung against her cheek, reminiscent of the choices awaiting her. Tomorrow would usher in a new reality, and already, she could see the storm gathering. Sarah squared her shoulders, determined to face the waves crashing against her no matter how daunting the current would become. As dusk enveloped the city, she could feel destiny whispering in the distance, urging her onward. Would she wade into the depths, or surrender to fear at the shore? Morning light filtered through the blinds, illuminating the room with a harsh realism that jolted Sarah from sleep. She blinked away remnants of unsettling dreams, visions of dizzying heights and treacherous falls that mirrored her current predicaments. The quiet of the house was poignant, amplifying the ticking clock on the wall, each second echoing her commitment to face Leo's challenge. She moved through her morning routine with mechanical precision, the hum of the coffee maker grounding her frayed nerves. Emily stirred in her sleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's mind. For the first time, Sarah found herself torn between two worlds, one of nurturing simplicity and another filled with cunning games and ruthless ambition. As she sipped her coffee, the steam curled up like a specter, embodying the tension coiling within her. Could she really enter a dark world, not knowing where the path would lead? The thought of failure clawed at her, igniting a frisson of panic. Yet, she knew the answer lay deeper than mere fear. Focus, she whispered to herself. This was about more than survival, it was about growth, about laying the foundations for a future she wanted, not the one dictated by circumstances. Today would mark the dawn of something new, a crucible designed to forge strength in the flames of adversity. the docks loomed on the horizon, swarming with chaotic energy as she parked her car. The gritty smells of the harbor assaulted her senses, a stark contrast to the softness of home. She stepped onto the cracked pavement, inhaling the salty air, and felt the unfamiliar charge of possibility scratch at her doubts. Pushing her shoulders back, she navigated toward the appointed spot, her heart drumming a rapid rhythm that matched the waves crashing against the nearby piers. Every step felt heavier with the weight of uncertainty and expectation. Leo's promise loomed large. This would be her proving ground. As she approached the designated area, she spotted Leo leaning against a weathered crate, engaged in conversation with a man whose tattooed arms told stories of an uncharted past. A glimmer of recognition flickered in Leo's eyes as he caught sight of her, the corner of his mouth curling upwards in that all-too-familiar predatory smile. "Right on time," he remarked, straightening with an easy grace. "I trust you had a good night's rest. You'll need it." "What's the challenge?" she demanded, urgency flaring within her. Leo beckoned to a pile of crates. "It's simple. I need you to survey these containers, identify what's valuable, and report back. But there's a catch. You're not the only one looking for worth here." Anxiety twisted in her stomach. "Are you serious? Scouting for hidden treasures? Is this a joke? Consider it an introduction to resourcefulness." His tone was unyielding, devoid of reassurance. "And remember, the competition doesn't play fair. Earning trust starts with proving you won't shy away from discomfort." Competitors? The realization hit like a cold wave. The world Leo occupied was riddled with wolves ready to pounce. Doubt whispered if she was prepared to outsmart them. Her heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but excitement. This wasn't merely an exercise, it was an awakening. "Fine. But I want more than a description of the challenge. I need to understand the players involved. I want to dash into a game I can't see." "Now you're thinking like a strategist." Leo's praise dripped with a hint of relish. "But keep in mind, it's not just about the riches. Sometimes, the price of information rises higher than you're prepared to pay. Watch your back." A thrill coursed through her. This wasn't just an affirmation of her ambition, it was a declaration of war against her own fears. She peered into the chaotic landscape of the docks, each stack of crates symbolizing unknown opportunities obscured by shadows. "Let us see what you're made of," Leo added, the glint of challenge sparkling in his eyes, setting her on edge. With renewed determination, Sarah strode toward the crates. The game was afoot, and with it came the realization that each move could shape not just her destiny but that of her daughter. As she rifled through the first crate, she wondered what secrets lay hidden beneath the surface. How far was she willing to plunge into this intricate web of deceit and ambition? The path forward was murky, every choice laden with potential consequences. A sudden crash startled her, reverberating across the docks, and she turned to see menacing figures emerging from a neighboring area. The atmosphere shifted, tension solidifying like iron. This was at the point of no return. "Sarah." Leo's voice sliced through the chaos. "Get back." Her instincts kicked in, embracing the fight or flight. As adrenaline surged, she realized she was already in the deep end, and the outcome rested entirely on her shoulders. Would she drown in the depths, or would this challenge elevate her to heights unseen? The tide was turning, and amid it all, Sarah felt a flicker of invincibility awaken within her. As the storm raged around her, one question lingered, propelling her toward the unfolding chaos. What would she uncover today, and at what cost? The air hummed with tension as Sarah turned to face the emerging figures. The men strolled forward with an unsettling swagger, their intent cloaked in menace. Fear curled around her spine, but alongside it surged a defiant energy. She wasn't here to back down. The psychological stakes were higher than ever, launching her deeper into confrontation with her frailty. "Stick close," Leo snapped, urgency cutting through his calm demeanor. The words ignited something primal within her. It was a command, and she felt a sudden need to prove she was capable of more than mere survival. These men weren't just rivals, they were tangible representations of everything she had to overcome. As they approached, Sarah observed their body language, the way they communicated through subtle motions and glances. Shadows loomed over their faces, masking any emotion but bravado. One of them, a tall figure with a jagged scar tracing down his cheek, held her gaze too long. She could sense his challenge, and her instincts whispered that she was treading on dangerous ground. "Where do you think you're going?" The scarred man sneered, his voice rough like gravel. Sarah squared her shoulders, refusing to show fear. This wasn't just a test by Leo, it was a life lesson in standing firm against the uncertainty of her surroundings. Who were they, and what determined their stakes in this game? The pulse in her head quickened as she sought the right words, a maneuver as delicate as the containers she scoured through moments before. "Just trying to find what's valuable. It seems to be a popular question today." Her voice dripped with confidence, defiance masking the quaking inside. Leo shot her a knowing look, a flicker of approval crossing his features as he assessed the unfolding standoff. She had engaged without backing down, but this was only the opening act. The atmosphere was volatile, a looming storm ready to unleash chaos. "Valuable, huh? You think you're up for this?" the man said, stepping closer until he loomed over her, an imposing presence. "You see, the real treasure's not just in the crates. It's in loyalty and power. You'll learn that quickly if you survive." Sarah's pulse quickened, not from fear, but a burning desire not to let this moment define her. There was so much at stake, and her daughter's future rested on her ability to navigate these murky waters. With each passing heartbeat, the reality set in. She had to seize control. "I'm not looking for trouble, but I won't shy away if it finds me," she replied, her conviction sharpening her words. The response surprised even her. It was fueled by an inner reservoir she was only beginning to discover. Leo's eyes sparkled as if witnessing the birth of an ally rather than just a competitor. The man chuckled, considering her bravery. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't help when you're outnumbered." There it was, the challenge laid bare before her. She needed to gather allies who could leverage her budding potential instead of weaponizing her uncertainty. Before she could ponder her next move, Leo interjected, "This is a game of wits, remember? You let the adversary underestimate you, then turn the table. Keep your eyes sharp." His words cut through the charged air, a reminder that strategy was paramount over sheer bravado. As the group dispersed, tension crackled in the air, and Sarah felt emboldened. She was eager to strategize, to evaluate and absorb the environment rather than fold under pressure. There was a fire igniting within her, a blend of fear, adrenaline, and determination lighting the path ahead. Now alone with Leo, she turned to him and demanded answers. "What's my next move? I can't just stand here and wait for someone else to make a play. I need a strategy." Observing is key, he instructed, leaning closer as they skirted the remnants of confrontation. "Those men are part of a larger hierarchy. Find the vulnerabilities, who trusts whom, and leverage the alliances that exist. You'll need information. Start learning who the players are, and where loyalties lie." The methodical approach resonated with her. This was more than scouring crates for valuables, it was an intricate dance of manipulation, trust, and power. She could adapt this knowledge, turning it into a tool that might significantly change her unsteady footing in this treacherous realm. With every passing moment, she stepped deeper into her newly ignited sense of self. She wasn't merely a mother trying to protect her child, she was transforming into a player in this ambivalent game. The thrill of empowerment surged through her, eclipsing her initial fears. Just as she began formulating a preliminary plan, a loud shout erupted from across the dock, pulling her attention toward another group. A clash was brewing, and it felt personal. The atmosphere shifted again, and for Sarah, reality split between making the right choice or falling into the chaos. As uncertainty reigned, she knew this moment was pivotal and would test her resolve. It was time to confront what lay ahead. Could she truly navigate the labyrinthine currents of power, all while maintaining her integrity? With every heartbeat, she felt the stakes rising. What would she uncover among these players, and could she endure the price of knowledge in this dangerous game? The challenge was evolving, and so was she. The commotion across the dock escalated, each shout and curse echoing like a warning bell. It felt personal. A primal instinct surged within Sarah, urging her toward the fray. This was no longer an abstract conflict. This was a crucial moment that could define her future and her daughter's. "What's happening?" she asked Leo, her voice betraying a touch of urgency. "Vying for territory," Leo replied, his face reflecting a mix of concern and anticipation. "Those men are testing their power against the others. If you pay attention, you might learn something valuable about their ranks and your potential place within them." The energy shifted as the shouting intensified, and Sarah's mind raced. This was an opportunity, but how could she take advantage of it without plunging into chaos? Her instincts pulled her toward the fray, but her rational mind warned against impulsive actions. She needed clarity, an awareness that would allow her to glean knowledge without getting embroiled directly. "Stay close," Leo warned again, his hands steady on her shoulder as they navigated around crates, seeking vantage points. In the growing cacophony, Sarah drew a breath, focusing her mind. She observed the aggressors. Gestures painted the picture of their standings. Dominance flexed in the way they squared their shoulders, how their eyes darted to their opponents, seeking weaknesses. She wasn't just scanning for weaknesses but expanding her own perception of power dynamics. "How do I know who to approach?" she asked, sensing a flicker of resolve sparking within her. "Look for connections," Leo said, his tone sharper now. "Allies form under the stress of confrontation. They'll act when they see chances for advancement. Watch for who backs whom. Loyalties can shift like shadows." As their argument crescendoed, a figure stepped between the warring parties, a sharp, commanding presence with a confident gait. It was a woman, petite but fiercer than many men in her vicinity. Sarah leaned in, curiosity piquing. "Who is she?" "Callie," Leo breathed, a note of respect in his voice. "Fierce negotiator for one of the more powerful factions here. She knows the game well. If you can catch her attention or, better yet, her trust, it could change everything for you." A vision sparked within Sarah's mind. Callie represented the type of ally she could use: intelligent, decisive, and no nonsense. But how? Should she rely on bravado, as she had earlier a brazen challenge? Or was it best to approach her with caution and respect, trading knowledge for opportunity? With her heart pounding, Sarah made a decision. This was not merely a pawn's play, it was an awakening. She had spent too long silent and on the sidelines. If she acted judiciously, she could seize this moment to redefine her own narrative. In the ensuing skirmish, as chaos swelled, she found a path toward Callie, a purposeful stride that signaled her intent. "I need information," she shouted, lifting her voice above the shouting men. Callie caught her gaze, sharp eyes appraising her. There it was, the flicker of intrigue. "Is that so?" The woman's lips curled slightly into a bemused smile. "And what would you offer in return?" Imperfection danced in Sarah's mind, but she pressed on, the specter of her daughter's safety and future suffusing her words with urgency. "I have insights, knowledge of vulnerable men and shifting loyalties. Let us strategize, together." The corners of Callie's eyes brightened, a glimmer of interest peeking. "Insights, huh? Let us see if you can back it up." The tension between them was palpable, an electrical current fueling what felt like the beginning of an alliance, but just as Sarah launched into her explanation, a powerful explosion of raucous laughter interrupted her. A gang of men, bruised but triumphant, pushed past her, and she felt the weight of their stares, some dismissive, some intrigued, and one in particular, deeply threatening. The scarred man was back, and he regarded her like a pawn he'd yet to stake a claim on. "Thought you could play in this game?" he taunted, voice silky but menacing. The swell of fear grappled with the resolve surging through Sarah's veins. She could either retreat, allowing intimidation to seize her, or stand her ground and solidify her purpose. "Not just play," she countered, quelling rising panic. "I'm here to win." A sinister grin spread across his face, recognizing the challenge in her eyes. The stakes were climbing, and she felt the undeniable tension of that moment, a pivotal intersection of fear, determination, and budding strength. The clock was ticking, and within this chaotic environment, genuine connection and adversarial challenge intertwined with Sarah's unresolved past, exposing fissures in both her ambition and identity. Could she navigate this intricate web and emerge stronger? The upcoming choices might redefine everything. Sarah stood resolutely, the charged air around her humming with possibility. In that moment, she recognized the evolution she had been undergoing would culminate in this very confrontation. While fear ran like ice through her veins, adrenaline galvanizing her senses heightened her awareness of the fractious dynamics at play. The stakes were rising above her expectations. The scarred man's grin sent ripples of determination coursing through her. She would not back down. "I'm here to win," she reiterated with an assertiveness that surprised not just him, but even herself. The world shifted slightly, and Sarah sensed the undeniable power of her choice. This was the moment meant for her. She was redefining what it meant to be a player in this world, embracing the unpredictable terrain of ambition she once feared. The scarred man chuckled, stepping closer until their eyes locked with a challenge. "You think you're ready? This game demands loyalty, responsibility, and sacrifice. Do you even know what's at stake?" "I know what's at stake for me," she countered, her voice unwavering. "It's my daughter's future. I'm willing to fight for it." His laughter faded, replaced by a glint of surprise that flickered across his hardened features. Her resolve had caught him off guard, and that alone solidified her standing among the chaos brewing in the docks. The air crackled with an electric charge, a transition point in her journey straddling the edge of newfound power. "Interesting," he remarked, intrigued yet wary. Behind him, the skirmish had reached a boiling point. The men bristled as if waiting for the signal to escalate. A potent reminder of the risks that enveloped her introduction to this shadowy world, but nonetheless, the truth radiated through her, fortifying her stance. "I'm not just an outsider looking to win, I'm ready to play the game," Sarah declared, her heart steadied with an innate knowledge that she was capable of navigating this storm. "I can help provide insights that could shift loyalties and power balances." A faint smirk creased the scarred man's lips, edged with skepticism. "And why should I care? What makes you different from the rest?" "Because I'm not just seeking validation for myself. I'm coming for a future where I thrive for my daughter," she asserted, her voice firm. "I understand the comforts of complacency, and I know the pain of destiny left unspooled. But I'm here now, willing to bear the responsibility of both ambition and care." The pause hung in the air as he processed her words. The crashing waves behind them mirrored the tumultuous churn in her stomach, standing poised at the brink of duality, integrity and desire, fear and courage, a dynamic Sarah recognized she must harness. "Your fire may earn you a brief respite, but remember this, in our world, nothing runs purely on noble intentions." His eyes glinted maliciously, but beneath it sparked something akin to respect. "That's where you're wrong," she replied, confronting his perspective. "I'm prepared to face the darkness to discover my own light. I'll learn the rules, but I refuse to be a pawn. I will shape my fate." With that declaration, Sarah felt the shift ignite, a wave surging through her with palpable momentum. The surrounding men resumed their disputes, temporarily forgetting her presence, as if the energy shifted in sync with her heartfelt proclamation. And it opened a chasm of opportunity. "Let us see if you can really handle this game," the scarred man finally said, intrigued rather than dismissive now. "Stick with me, and we might just have something worth exploring." Their verbal dance had become a pact, commingling their capabilities and goals amid a webs of uncertainty that she sought to understand. She would be proactive in this contest, navigating the intricate map of alliances and challenges that awaited. "I'm ready," Sarah asserted, the conviction in her voice echoing like an unbroken bond to her own desires. "Give me the chance, and you'll see what I'm capable of." The agreement hung in the air, marking the beginning of Sarah's ascent from mere spectator to participant, her journey now tethered to the shadows of uncertainty yet feeding on the courage she had summoned. They exchanged knowing looks, and as the remnants of their exchange unfolded, a newfound clarity washed over Sarah. She would embrace the game, not as a reluctant player but as a fierce strategist ready to carve her path. It wasn't solely about ambition anymore, it was about integrity, fortitude, and perseverance. The shadows she found entwined with ambition had illuminated an unexpected truth. She could become more than she thought possible, both for herself and, most importantly, for Emily, and so began the journey into this underbelly of existence, a thrilling game of power, survival, and self-discovery that demanded she rise, aspire, and fortify the walls surrounding her world anew. The moment compounding once fearful uncertainty with empowering resolve blossomed into a fierce identity, revitalized with every heartbeat igniting under the din of confidence. Tomorrow new challenges awaited beyond the dock, and with every step she took into this wild, untested frontier, there was a resolute determination guiding her journey to find her place in the chaotic dance of survival, loyalty, and carving a life worth living. And amidst the storms, Sarah would remain unyielding, grounded in her intentions, a woman embracing the terminal edge of uncertainty while holding fast to the radiant spark she had ignited within herself. Now comes the moment to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that shape lives. Leave a like now to help fuel the algorithm and share this journey forward. Comment your reactions and theories about tonight's ending because your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this story of overcoming journey, because this is how we empower each other. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.